Hey everybody, I am so excited to be on this webinar with you guys. I gotta admit that I did a webinar about a week to 2 weeks ago of the Kick the Sick, and I did a Zoom call. It was my first time ever doing it, and I thought I streamed it live on Facebook too. Turns out I'm not IT savvy. I did not do it correctly. So I'm getting on here again to re-record it to make sure that you all get this information. And the reason that I really want to bring this to you is because we have so many families right now that are coming in the office so scared that their kiddo is going to get sick, right? Or that their kiddo is sick and they're like, now what do I do? Like, we have the holidays coming up, right? So I want to break this down for you and really talk about, well, why would they be getting sick in the first place? Some of the things to look for, when to know when to refer out, and then what are some things that you can do as parents to get your child's immune system stronger and to get them over this, so that way next time they come in contact with something, they can have a quicker response time, right? And get over this faster. We just had one parent come in this morning and he's like, he has a runny nose. I'm like, okay, it's all right. And he's like, it's going down into the lungs. What do I do? And so I kind of broke down some of this for him. He's like, oh, this makes me feel so much better, okay? So we're gonna really talk about this and dive into it. I promise I won't get too nerdy. I'll keep you with me on this. But if you like any of this information, reach out to me, comment on here. If you have any questions, comment on here. I'm taking a look and seeing if anybody's putting anything in the comment section. If we don't get around to answering your question today, I will definitely personally reach out to you with any answers that I have, because I'm a resource here for you guys. For those of you who don't know me, I am Dr. Savy Ford. I am a chiropractor at Blossom Family Chiropractic. I'm also the owner of Blossom Family Chiropractic. And I am a pediatric, prenatal, and family-focused chiropractor. And so we talk a lot and see a lot of kids in the office, and I just want to kind of dive into this Kick the Sick webinar, all right? So let's go ahead and get started. So one thing that parents are so worried about is this cold and flu season, and I always kind of laugh when we talk about a cold and flu season, mostly because, and I put this in air quotes, because, you know, do viruses and bacteria and germs, do they only come out and around one season or for a few months out of the year? I mean, no, that's silly, right? Like, they're there throughout the entire year. What changes is our environment, right? All of a sudden, you know, we just got past Halloween, which is one of the reasons we're seeing so many kids come in right now, because they just loaded up on sugar, right? The day after Halloween is the #1 most missed day of school, because kids' immune systems just crash with all of the sugar overload. Then we go into the holidays, and what we see is Thanksgiving come around with all the pies and all of this stuff, and then we have the holidays, which are stressful, and then you add in, you know, more cakes and and cookies and every sweet you could possibly imagine. So really, it's not that the viruses, the bacteria, all of this stuff only come around a couple months out of the year. They're around the whole entire time, but it's, you know what, our environment changes, and it changes the way that we're able to adapt and fight off things, all right? And so let's dive a little bit deeper into that. You know, I always think it's funny when teachers will come in and they're like, you know, half the class is sick right now, or they say half the class is healthy right now. You know, were those kids not in the same class? Of course they were, right? Were they not exposed to the same germs? Of course they were. Or even think about in your family, you got 3 kids, right? So one of them, he or she gets sick and gets over it within like 2 days. One of them doesn't get sick at all, and then the other one literally has this runny nose, and like every week it's like fever, runny nose, just one thing after another. It seems like they're sick for months on end, right? Well, why is that? Well, because it is that some of these kids have a stronger immune system, and they're able to fight off things better than the other ones, all right? And so one of the things that I always talk to parents about, and I say, do you think symptoms are a bad thing? And most people would say they are, but we're going to kind of dive into the most frequent symptoms that we typically see for kiddos that are sick, or for anybody that's sick actually, and dive into these and really dive into whether this is a good response or a bad response. All right, so let's talk about coughs first. All right, because we see a lot of people coming in coughing, hacking up, right? Well, usually cough is due to one of two things, either an environmental irritant, or it's going to be due to a postnasal drip. A lot of times we'll feel more coughing come on at night because we're in a horizontal playing field, and so all of that gets backed up in our lungs and kind of comes up. But is coughing a bad thing? Well, there are definitely times that it can be, right? We always worry about like bronchitis, pneumonia, things like that, and there can be serious things associated with coughing. However, in most cases, coughing is a good thing. The reason that coughing exists is either number one, to bring all of that up and out of your body, or number two, to express it. So once it goes into the lungs, to express it, so it goes into those lymph nodes and then goes down into the gut and can get out of your system and out of your body. So is coughing a bad thing? Well, I mean, it's uncomfortable, sure, but is it a good response of your body? Yeah, in most cases it is, right? So let's talk about, because number one question I get is, well, like, when should I be concerned with a cough? At what point should I be taking my kid to a pediatrician? Great questions. And parents, you really, whenever I'm answering these questions, I always want you to follow your parent gut, okay? The mom gut, the dad gut. We always get this gut instinct, and I want you to follow that because you know your kid best, all right? So if they're not acting themselves, right, then maybe you look at taking them in. But some of the biggest things that we want to watch out for, number one, are they shortness of breath, right? Are they breathing normally, or are they have really shallow breaths and labored breathing? Are they wheezing at all? With the coughs, is there any like green mucus that's coming up? Usually that's indicative of a bacterial infection, which in that case, you may want to go to your pediatrician and get a little bit extra help and support. Also, if you have a fever, a sustained fever with the cough, that might be another time, you know, usually over 48 hours or so, that's a time to really look and see, well, what else is going on? Yeah, that's also, if your kid's super lethargic, they just have zero energy, they're just not acting like themselves. Once again, use that parent gut, but that's another time that you're gonna be like, okay, maybe I need to take my kiddo in, okay? So let's also talk, you know, because with a cough, let's talk about a normal response and how the body kind of processes this, right? A normal immune response. A lot of times we start seeing sinusy stuff going on, right? We have those dark circles under the eyes. We hear that congestion. All the sinuses are just backed up. We got lots of mucus in there. We might see sinus infections. We might see ear infections, right? Well, after that starts draining, then what it does is it typically goes to the throat, and then it'll work its way down into the lungs. One of our parents today said, I said, is it a dry cough or it's a wet cough? He's like, it's definitely a wet cough. I said, okay, so a dry cough typically means it's going to be up in the top portion of the lungs. A wet cough is usually going to be more so in the bottom portion of the lungs. And that's actually a good sign. I said, okay, that's actually a good thing. It means it's on its way out, right? Because typically, if it's at the bottom of the lungs, it's going to work its way, express itself into those lymph nodes, and then down into the gut, out the system, all right? Don't worry, Dad. It's working its way out right now. That's a good sign, all right? And of course, we looked out for any of those red flags, too, that we just kind of mentioned. But let's talk about, you know, with that normal immune response, after it goes from the sinuses, goes to the throat, right? And so a lot of times we'll see sore throats. Now, I know parents are like, oh my gosh, the thing we worry about the most is strep throat, all right? But in most cases, in most cases, it's going to be viral in nature, and it's just a sore throat. And we know that because what happens is, with a sore throat, it's inflamed and it's viral in nature, right? What the body does is it says, oh, you know what? I need a little extra support to be able to fight off this virus or this bacteria. Typically, in most cases, it's going to be viral. So it says, I need a little bit more support. White blood cells, let's activate. Let's go ahead and try and fight off what's coming in right now. And we'll see those swollen tonsils and adenoids sometimes, right? And you know, a lot of parents will say, well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, that's a good response of your body because your body's trying to fight it off, right? Yeah, it's uncomfortable, but usually you're going to get past this within about 3-4 days. And so we want that to keep draining, to keep working its way down into that chest and then out the body, all right? So sore throat, not necessarily a bad thing. Things to look out for is going to be if your kid is having trouble swallowing, all right? If they're having trouble swallowing, you definitely want to take them to the pediatrician. For younger kids that can't necessarily tell you what's going on, you might want to look for a tripod position. What happens is that kid inverts themselves, and you're going to see lots of drool because they can't actually swallow or intake that saliva. So they're going to kind of tripod themselves or go into an inverted position, and you want to keep an eye out for that. Also, if you are looking at your kids, take a flashlight back there and you see little pussy nodules, yeah, that's another time that you're really going to want to go and take your kid to the pediatrician for that. All right, so those are some things to look out for with the sore throats. But a lot of times, the things that we want to do, because that throat is irritated, is number one, we want to make sure that we're keeping hydrated, okay? It is irritated, and we want to get plenty of fluids to flush and detox our body, all right? So just to keep everything moving. Number two, hot or like warm soups, teas, these tend to be really nourishing and really soothing to the throat during these times. So some good chicken soup or some chicken broth is wonderful. Also, any kind of warm tea is great. Even honey, right? Honey, it has anti-inflammatory and antiviral properties. Now, just forewarning, if your kid's under 1, maybe even 2 years old, you want to watch out for that honey. But if they're an older child, then it's going to be really soothing to their throat. All right, so that's another thing that you can try. We also want to look at, well, what are they eating right now? And make sure that they're not eating really inflammatory foods, things that tend to be inflammatory. Grains, all right, because grain is then processed through the body and turned into sugar. Sugars, so all that candy that they may or may not have just eaten for Halloween, right? We want to stay away from those. And also dairy is going to be a big one. So those milk products, those cheese products, those are also mucus producers, right? We're trying to get these kids past it. We don't need excess mucus that our body has to try and break down and fight against. So those are going to be some things to look for with that. And another thing, fever. Fever is probably a parent's biggest concern, okay? And I see this the most because everybody's worried about the febrile seizures, all right? And I totally get that. I am a parent myself. I have a little 9-month-old, and I will tell you, he just had his first fever a couple weeks ago. And don't get me wrong, I know, like, my mama bear kicked in, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to help him. He looks so miserable, right? But I also had to think about, in my educated brain, what a fever really was. So let's talk about fevers, because I'm sure most of you guys have been camping at some point in your life. I've only been once. I told my husband from now on, I'm only allowed to go glamping, meaning I'm in a hotel with a nice hot shower. I refuse to actually go camping again. I had my experience, did it, I checked off the box, but no more. All right, but just go with me on this analogy if you're like me and you only like the glamping style and the finer things in life, right? When you're camping and all of a sudden you run out of water, right? And you come across a stream, do you drink it? Well, probably not, right? And why? Because there's going to be some gunk in there. So there's going to be some viruses, some bacteria, right, that you don't want to consume. So if you were to actually drink that water, what would you do to it? You would boil it, right? And you boil it because you want to kill off those things. So that is actually a good thing to happen. Wouldn't that be cool if our body had that mechanism? Oh, wait, we do. It's a fever. When our body recognizes some sort of foreign invader trying to get in, our internal temperature actually rises up, all right, to try and kill off those viruses or bacteria. That's our body's first line of defense. That's a really good thing to happen, a really smart response of our body to do. So yeah, you know, parents are like, oh my gosh, like, fever, it's a bad thing. No, 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 it's not. It's actually a good thing. It's going to let these kids get over things faster and heal quicker. I mean, the first time your kid gets sick, how did they handle it, right? If you let that fever go through, then they form those antibodies so that the next time that there is a virus, they can fight that off sooner. I hated seeing my little boy sick a couple weeks ago, but I knew in my educated brain, I'm like, no, I just need to let his body do this. His immune system is fairly not developed at this point because he's only 9 months old, right? So I gotta let I gotta train his immune system to be able to fight this stuff off as it comes. Because as a society, you know, and I totally get this as a parent, we don't want to see our kids suffer. So what do? We give them Motrin, we get them Tylenol to bring down the fever. But that's actually doing our body a disservice because we're not actually able to fight it off the way that we want to or as fast as we should be able to. So rather than necessarily jumping to that, we definitely want to let the body do its thing, right? Fever is our friend. It's not a bad thing in most cases. If it gets to be over 103, that's really where we want to look at calling the doctor and calling the pediatrician, giving them something to bring it down. That's where it gets kind of that dangerous point, all right? So we want to monitor that, make sure that we're keeping a close eye on it. But also parents, once again, trust that mama gut, trust that daddy gut, right? If you see your kid and they're just not acting like themselves, that's when you want to take them in. Trust your own instinct with that, right? If they are just not acting themselves at all and they just seem absolutely miserable, trust your mama gut. If they are not drinking water or not hydrating themselves, or if you have a nursing baby, a formula-fed baby, if they're not drinking anything and they're not staying hydrated, that's something to look out for. If they, a lot of times with a fever, they're not going to be really hungry, that's okay. We just want to make sure that they're staying hydrated with everything. Also, if they don't seem to be really interacting with you, if they're losing kind of that eye contact and they're just not the normal selves interacting, that's another time that we really want to look at that. If they're taking shallow breaths, another time that's when we kind of want to refer out, right? Or a fever that's staying persistent more than about 48 hours. That's when we're like, okay, let's take a look at this, right? But a fever, and I know it's such a pain in the butt too, because not only do you not want to see your kids sick, but also usually means that as parents we have to take off work. But a fever is also kind of that sign to let your kid rest, right? Their body needs a little help. Best thing that you can do at this point, let the fever run its course. Also, let the kid rest and keep them hydrated. Those are going to be one of the best things that you can do to get your kid past this and to really help boost that immune system so they're able to fight this off quicker, sooner, and have a faster response time next time they come in contact with some sort of virus, all right? So yeah, rest, make sure kids are getting plenty of fluids. So why do all these things happen, right? Why does our immune system get challenged in the first place? Well, we know that our immune system is under direct response of our nervous system, okay? And so like if you're thinking about this, our nervous system is our master control system in the entire body, right? It tells everything what to do, every cell, every tissue, every muscle, every organ, every system, including that immune system. So imagine that the nervous system is the head coach, all right? And the head coach is calling all of these plays. Well, the immune system, those are actually all the players that are gonna execute that, okay? So in order for us to have appropriate immune responses, our nervous system, that master control system's gotta be functioning normally, all right? Let's think about, I like to kind of break it down as like a circuit breaker. Now, any of you that are like over 14, you'll know what a circuit breaker is, okay? Any younger kids are like, I don't know what that is. I'm like, you know, when the power goes out and your dad goes into like the garage or a dungy basement, usually not a basement in Florida, but you know, or in the garage and flips some switch. Yeah, that's a circuit breaker, okay? All right, our spine and our nervous system is kind of like a circuit breaker. We have our brain, we have the spinal cord, and all of these nerves that come out and control and coordinate everything. We have nerves that are going to the sinuses, right, into the ears, to the eyes. We have ones that are going to the lungs, to the gut, all of these different things. And so what happens, imagine like we have Thanksgiving coming up in a couple weeks, right? And at Thanksgiving, all of a sudden you have so many things running. You have the dishwasher running, you got the oven going, you got the blender going, the toaster's coming on, and the microwave's going. I mean, literally you have every appliance going in your house. And all of a sudden, power shuts off. What happens? Well, your circuit breaker was like, oh, you know what? You're using too much electricity. You're going to burn this house down. So as a safety measure, we're going to go ahead and shut this down. All right. That's kind of what happens with our nervous system. If our nervous system is overloaded with stress, whether that be emotional stress, like the holidays, things coming up, whether that be physical stress that we've encountered, or whether that be emotional, physical, or like things that we're taking in, like toxic stress, right? Or chemical stress. Those are all things that can stress out our nervous system. And so our nervous system's way under stress up here. I call this like gas pedal mode, right? And we're just in this go, go, go stress mode all the time. The part of the nervous system that's responsible for immune responses is down here. Our nervous system kind of acts, like I talk about that part as if it's a brake pedal, right? And it kind of acts as a teeter-totter. So if one's up, the other's got to be down. Well, we get so much stress, so overloaded, right? And all of a sudden our immune response just can't catch up. And so we get sick, right? And it's our body just trying to slow down. Well, in order to really check and see, well, how well can my body adapt to stress? How well is my immune system going to respond? We really got to look at that nervous system and see how much stress is it under to know if you're going to have appropriate immune responses, right? And if we can really build that immune system for you. So that's why a lot of people end up coming to see me as a chiropractor, as a pediatric chiropractor, is because they really want to boost that immune system. One of the first things that I do anytime, I mean, my baby Chase, right? He's 9 months old. When he started getting that fever, I looked at him, I was like, okay, his body's trying to fight something off right now. That's a good, smart response of his body to do. I'm going to adjust him to make sure his nervous system, that master control system, can tell that immune system what to do and it can function appropriately and get him over this faster, all right? So one of the biggest things is checking that nervous system, and that's what a chiropractor does, is work with the nervous system to optimize the function, allowing their body to fight off things. In fact, chiropractic adjustments boost immune responses by up to 200%, so that is huge, all right? Also, we kind of talked about diet already. We want to make sure that our kid is eating healthy foods, whole foods, cut out the processed crap. All right, that's not going to do their body any good during this time. We want to cut down the amount of sugar that they're having because that's not going to help their body. All right, we also want to make sure they're drinking plenty of fluids, that they're getting rest, right? Those are all things that are going to help to keep them healthy. Well, once my kid is already sick, right, or even as a preventive measure, what do? I get parents ask that all the time. I'll tell you kind of my few things that I do. Not only get them adjusted, of course, both proactively and reactively if they do get sick to better help their body fight this off. But number two, I also do elderberry syrup. You can get this from most local health food stores, Whole Foods, Earth Fare, Earth Origins, Rolling Oats, all of those. We also have it here in the office. This is a really good brand. But elderberry syrup, this is safe for nursing moms. This is also safe for kiddos. I actually use a syringe in here and take about 2 teaspoons and I'll squirt it in my son's mouth. It's actually a really good flavor. It kind of tastes tart and a little sweet, and he likes it. But this is good to do both proactively and reactively once they get sick as well. You can up the dosage a little bit more if they're trying to fight something off. But elderberry is huge in supporting their immune system and getting it healthier. Also, vitamin D. Vitamin D is really important when boosting that immune system. So that's going to be a really good one. We have Innate Response in the office. These are awesome. So making sure that your kid is getting enough vitamin D, really important. Also, vitamin C is really good too. And also supporting their gut, because with the amount of times that I see kids get sick, and also with our diet in America, we tend to consume a lot of antibiotics, all right? They're definitely overprescribed, and so what happens is those antibiotics wipe out both good and bad gut bacteria. And so that good gut bacteria is really important and essential in helping that immune system, all right? That's where a lot of our immune system is housed. So doing a probiotic. This is Clear Labs. This is an awesome one. It says an infant probiotic. We sell this in the office too. This is really good though. It's powder form, so it's good for kids too. You can put that in their water. It doesn't taste like a whole lot. You could put it in, whatever they're drinking, or even mix it in some of their food. And they really don't tend to notice. It doesn't taste like anything, and it's a really good high quality one. So those are all really good things that you can do. But you know what? My whole goal here is to help these families get you, maybe think about health a little differently, think about symptoms a little differently, and maybe being a good thing that your body is doing exactly what it's supposed to and expressing itself to get over this thing faster. But I want to be a resource for your friends, family. If you know anybody that could benefit from this, please tag them on here, share it on your page, send them over to our website. We have lots of articles on there. They can message me personally on Facebook. Savy Ford is what I'm listed under. But I want to be a resource for your family. If you have any questions whatsoever, please send them over here. But if you and your child and your family is just stuck in this like sick cycle, come in the office. Like, we have the technology to be able to see how that nervous system is actually functioning, how much stress is under, because then we're going to know exactly how your body's going to handle something when it gets sick, right? And we want to make sure that we're boosting that immune response and breaking that cycle of sick, all right? We want to make sure that we're activating that brake pedal. That's so important for those immune responses. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope this was helpful. Feel free to contact us. Text us, call us, email us. Our text/phone number is 727-498-5643. You can email us at blossomfamilychiro@gmail.com. Facebook us. I mean, we are available for all these things. But yeah, like, share, comment, and help us spread the word to all these families in need. So thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day. Thanks. Bye-bye.